Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the Budget and Public Employees Committee hearing to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Oldenburg.
Here.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Present.
Alderwoman Sanier. Alderman Aldrich. Chair Spencer.
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldrich. We have 4 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First item of business today would be the approval of the minutes. We have several minutes here to approve. Minutes from Monday, May 20th, 2024, from Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. I think that might be May 22nd. There might be
Correct. May 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Okay, yep, we have a little bit of a typo there in the agenda. So we have a series of 3 sets of minutes. I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk,
Second.
would you, thank you, Alderwoman from the 6th. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanier.
Aye.
Alderman Aldrich. Chair Spencer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldrich. We have 4 aye votes.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. We have just one item of business to attend to today, and that's Board Bill number 1, our city's budget. Today, Tuesday, June 4th, we have 3 departments before us, starting with the Neighborhood Improvement Division, followed by the Personnel Department, and then followed by Chief Coyle, the Public Safety Director, and the Corrections Commissioner is going to be in attendance to answer any questions. And so with that, we can start with our Neighborhood Improvement Division. Just to remind everyone, we're asking department heads to give a brief overview of your department, what you're over, and then we'll go through your budget and we'll take questions. If you don't mind, just to make sure the mic is on, and make sure to introduce yourself and anybody from your department that you have with you today. Good morning. You might want to make sure that is there a green light on the side?
Okay. Okay. It works.
Excellent. Great. Good morning.
Good morning. So my name is Sandra Zambrana, and I'm over the Neighborhood Stabilization Division. And before we start with the budget, I just wanted to give you an overview of our division. So if you look at the next slide, it gives you who the Neighborhood Stabilization. We're under the Department of Public Safety. However, we handle 2. The first one is the Neighborhood Stabilization Team, which comprises of the Neighborhood Improvement Specialists, NISs. And then we have the Citizen Service Bureau, which comprises of the Customer Service Representatives for CSB. So both of them have similar yet different roles. So the Citizen Service Bureau, they handle phone calls, and they submit the service request to the different departments. And that's all that they do. So they just take the phone calls, create the service request in CityWorks, and then submit it to the correct department. The Neighborhood Improvement Specialist, under the Neighborhood Stabilization Team, what they do is a variety of things. So they also go in the field and they find issues like, like if the trash wasn't picked up, or if there's any building structure issues, or if there's any behavioral issues. In addition to that, they attend the neighborhood association meetings for the neighborhoods. And they are also a big part of the nuisance team, which handles problem properties within the city. So we do have 2 groups under the Neighborhood Stabilization Division. Our essential functions are to submit service requests. And this next part is pretty important because I don't believe that a lot of people know about this. Any type of service requests that's submitted through our website, through the city's website. And every IVA, which is Intelligent Virtual Agent, through our 5-9 system, our call center, all of those, anytime that is submitted, we have to review and revise them. So, because, as you know, people may submit, there may be 4 different, let's say a problem code, and one problem code can go to 4 different divisions. So the residents don't know that, so they'll just pick one. And then what we have to do is we have to revise it to make sure that the problem code is correct in the service request and is submitted to the correct department. So we also provide residents with information, any type of assistance or intervention that they may need. As I said, we attend neighborhood association meetings. Good morning. And we collaborate with different organizations to work on areas that need improvement. We survey the neighborhoods, as I said, and we basically handle all the problems. Well, we handle problems with behavioral issues as well as problems with building issues. So that's our essential functions. In reference to our accomplishments, I can proudly say that we have created a training manual for the Citizen Service Bureau and for the Neighborhood Improvement Specialist. So now our training for the Neighborhood Improvement Specialist is 6 weeks, and our training for the Customer Service Representatives is 2 weeks. We definitely have a higher attendance in, oh, you can go to the next slide if you don't mind. We have a higher attendance to the neighborhood association meetings. And for the fiscal year of 2023, CSB web views, and all this information comes from the city. CSB web views, you can see it was like around 38,000. Residents checking on their service requests was around 64,000. There was 0 for public nuisance, and the new users were like around 12,000. So I believe that in reference to our creation to the Neighborhood Stabilization Division newsletter, and making people aware of what all is available on the website, we come to fiscal year 2024, where the CSB web views went up to around 77,000. So checking the status of the service request went to 118,000 from the previous year. That's 84% higher. Public nuisance is around 1,400, and then the new users is like 20,000. So that's like 70% higher than the previous year. In reference to our matrix and performance, in 2023, we had the service request through CSB was around 106. The total neighborhood stabilization team, those are the NISs, that was around 21,000. And then for the fiscal year 2024 up to May 31st, the total CSB service request was around 89,000. And then for the neighborhood improvement specialist was around 20,000. The next one is important because, as I stated before, we have to review all of the web service requests in addition to the IVAs. So if you look, the jump between the service requests through the web was 46,000 last 2023, but 2024 was 38,000. Then if you look at the IVA service request, it was 894 in fiscal year 2023. Fiscal year 2024 was 10,000. So those are 10,000 plus 38,000 service requests that we have reviewed, revised, and submitted to the proper department or division. In reference to we created this day called Clean Day, where we go to a specific neighborhood, specific alley or street. Fiscal year 2023, we did a total of 11. 2024 up to May 31st, we did 16. Then in reference to fiscal year 2023, there were 516 neighborhood association meetings that we knew about. The total NAMs, short version, was 451. That's 87% attendance. One of our goals was to increase the attendance in the neighborhood association meetings. So a lot of work went into finding out what all neighborhood association meetings there were. And in fiscal year 2024, the total neighborhood association meetings were 645, and we attended 601. That's 93% attendance. So the next slide is in reference to our budget. And there are some differences in overtime, communication, wearing apparel, awards and incentives, education and training, internal services, that's multi-graph, and then the personnel schedule. The next slide basically gives you an overview of what the difference is from our budget the previous year to this year. I don't know if you want me to talk about that or if you just want me to go to the goals. If you have any questions with any line items. I believe that budget starts in page 273.
That's right, 273. It looks like you have a proposed budget of 3.2 million, very similar, just a hair shy under your requested budget of 3.3 million. The biggest difference, it looked to me like, was just in some calculations related to personnel. So there was just one person, I think, requested that was not filled. Is that correct? I'm looking at the personnel schedule. You were looking at 40?
Yes, so they cut our CSB supervisor.
Okay, but you had last year 39 people, and it's projected to be the same. Is that right?
Yes, but I believe that last year there was it needed to be 40. But somehow it was 39. I'm not sure what happened there. However, it does look like it's the same, yet this year they did cut our CSB supervisor.
Okay, and so how is that going to impact the department?
Well, it will impact our CSB because there's really, there will be nobody to, well, basically I'm overseeing them right now. We haven't had a supervisor since August of 2023. So it is a little difficult to be the executive director of a department, CSB supervisor and payroll specialist as well. So it's a little difficult.
Okay.
And I think that the whole point is in July 2022, I want to move more towards quality versus quantity. So I do believe that quantity is important, and at the same time, quality is very important. So how somebody speaks to you, what they can provide for you, if they follow up, you know, if they respond to your emails, if they respond to the residents' emails or phone calls. So that's the part of the quality that goes into my goals, as well as how to measure or how to find a matrix for quality versus quantity.
Okay. Director, when you were showing us the slides on the number of CSB requests that you receive, one of the things, I mean, we get a lot of questions about sort of like, I know one.
Slide was that?
It was the slide right
For the
before
previous
this.
one?
Correct. Yeah, this one.
Okay.
I was a little bit confused here. So on the left, you've got fiscal year 2023 total CSB
Service requests.
service requests, and the number on the right is from the NSTs?
It's from the neighborhood improvement specialist.
Correct.
So remember, we have like two groups. One is CSB, the Citizen Service Bureau, which has the customer service representatives that handle the phone calls. And then we have the neighborhood stabilization team that has the neighborhood improvement specialists, and those are the NISs.
And one of the questions we get a lot is, sort of the response time, once it leaves neighborhood stabilization and gets to the department. So for example, a tree falls down or there's a limb in the road, you submit a CSB request. It leaves your office, goes to the department that's in charge of addressing that issue.
Yes.
And that sort of lag time between resolution. Do you have, other than the database that's online, which is sort of cumbersome because it just kind of, you get all the CSB requests in like tranche?
The City Works?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. It would be helpful to have a report that kind of describes where these CSB requests, the subjects that they're related to. So for example, trash in the alley, the departments, and then the return time to be able to return those services. This committee is overseeing obviously the budget, and we're trying to make decisions as far as where we need to potentially allocate additional resources to departments, and understanding where citizens are making complaints and where those complaints are taking the longest to fill would be really, really instructive in how we could better allocate the limited resources, the limited funding that the city has. So for example, if we're getting a ton of refuse complaints, which I know I am as an older person, and I can only assume you are as the neighborhood stabilization team, from our citizens saying, hey, we have a lot of garbage in our alley, then that would be helpful for us to understand, hey, we should put more money in our refuse department. We're not meeting the needs. Citizens are complaining. So having that data to the policymakers and to the citizens as a whole, some reports on that front would be very, very helpful. Do you have any of those reports that you could share with us?
Yes, so we can, there are reports that we can pull. One of them is, it breaks down how many service requests are for each division or each department, like refuse or the street division or the street department, forestry. We don't have, and that would be talking to CityWorks IT folks and asking them to add a line item that says the average response time. I believe that was recently fixed in reference to the different departments putting completed, which means that they performed the work. And so I can just simply ask CityWorks IT people to add that line item.
That would be really helpful. Sometimes those CSB requests are marked as complete simply when there's another one that has the same complaint. So for example,
Like duplicate service requests?
that's correct.
Yes.
And so that's a little bit misleading. You have a resident that submits a pothole, and the pothole doesn't get filled. And they get rightfully frustrated and submit another one, and it's immediately terminated because there's an outstanding one. Or the next door neighbor also submits the same pothole, and their request is automatically filled, if you will, returned as completed because there's an outstanding request. And so there's a level of frustration that that situation creates in the community. There's a level of, I would say, confusion about that. But then also, if we're looking at the turnaround time, it obviously very much skew the results because it's not necessarily been completed. The service request is just still standing.
Right, so one of the things that, so there's a couple of issues there. The first one is if the person is submitting the service request through the IVA or through the web, that comes to us and we have to review it. So one of our roles is to find any duplicate service requests. So if 4 different people put in the service request, let's say the same night, there's going to be 4 different service requests for the same exact thing. Our job is to ensure that there's only one, right? And we're supposed to add the information from the other service request into that one. So there's one standing with 4 different complaints. Does that make sense? And so if that's, so we just, we're going to have training this Friday. CityWorks IT folks are going to teach us how to find duplicate service requests, how to geocode properly so that doesn't happen anymore. The proper way of, if there's 4 service requests coming in for the same exact thing, the way to handle that is to, let's say that they all came in through our website. So the way to handle that would be to cancel it and put the service request that will be standing in there, so that gives a message to the residents in our website.
I'm going to turn it over to the committee for questions. Alderwoman Boyd wasn't able to join us this morning, is that right, Madam Clerk? Okay, so Alderman Oldenburg,
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
No questions. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Zambrana for this presentation. And actually, I do have a question. Sorry. Can you just talk a little bit about? I know that you mentioned training, but like, what? Can you just talk about more about the training that you have now and what you're looking at for the next fiscal year?
Yes, are you talking in reference, so for both, for CSB and NFP, like the neighborhood improvement specialists and the customer service representatives, or specific?
Neighborhood specialists.
Excuse me?
Neighborhood improvement specialists.
Yes, so what we're aiming for is, one, I realized that the neighborhood improvement specialists were not being trained in CityWorks, which is how you submit service requests. There was no formal training at all. So what we're doing is we're taking 2 weeks to train them. So the first week is training them in CityWorks with our customer service representatives, which they are the experts in CityWorks, as well as other NISs that are training them, and our supervisor, our neighborhood improvement supervisor, Karen Clifford, who is the master of all things. She's also training them. And then what we do is, after the first week of CityWorks, the second week, they will, so right now, the NISs, we have 3 of them. They are sitting with the customer service representatives. The CSB, they're taking the phone calls, and the NISs are inputting the service requests in CityWorks. So that's another way. So first you learn it in theory, the second is hands-on. The next week, we're going to start showing them, having other NISs take them in the field, and going back to the office and inputting the service requests through CityWorks. Then after that, we're going to move into problem properties. And problem properties is with the problem property database. It's a lot. So we have to learn the nuisance ordinance. We have to know when we can send a cease and desist letter. So the rest of the time is spent on problem properties. And in addition to that, we also talk about the neighborhood association meetings. Like, what is it? That's one of our goals as well, is to be able to have a format. So when the neighborhood association, when the NISs go to the neighborhood association meetings, they're all pretty much giving the same information, aside from the updates that each neighborhood has. So we won't have neighborhood improvement specialists, some neighborhood improvement specialists in one area not having anything to say, and others having something to say. We want to make sure that all the information is given to all the neighborhood association meetings.
And just to kind of piggyback off of what Madam Chair was talking about with the CSB, sort of, if there's any analysis, would that be part of what the CSB supervisor would do? I guess I know that that's a position that hasn't been approved, but just curious on what that position.
Right, so the CSB supervisor pretty much oversees the quality of, and they look at the reports. So we have a very fancy, it's called 5-9, it's our call center. So we have to look at a lot of numbers, a lot of spreadsheets to ensure that all of our customer service representatives are accurately, watching our abandon time, watching how many calls are coming in, looking at, are they, what is it exactly, how are they handling the phone calls? It's assuring quality. So the CSB supervisor would tune in into the phone call, and if there's anything that's off, then the CSB supervisor would be able to address that with the customer service representative. So that's, I believe that not having a CSB supervisor would impact the quality of our customer service representatives.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
You're welcome.
Alderwoman Saunier.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
First, I always start with thanking folks for their work. You are someone who I'm not the most contact because I usually talk to the NISs directly, but whenever I've had any problems or had any further questions, you've always been very responsive. I just had a question. I don't think it's in the budget, just about the movement of the NIS. Is there a certain time, like I know there was just a new big shift and change, and is there a certain time period of which they're changed? I've just been getting some outreach from constituents and I think you just did the first one for all of the neighborhoods, but I think in my ward, we've just seen some frequent changes, maybe more often than they're used to. So I was just curious about the timeline of when they all get switched and like what leads to those changes and the criteria for that.
So one of the things that I look at is the NIS's personality and the personality of the neighborhood, if that makes sense. And so one of the things that I decided to do when I first came in is to go from wards to neighborhoods to balance the workload of each NIS. And so there are a lot of times so right now I'm moving into having all of the NISs have some north neighborhoods and some south neighborhoods and some central neighborhoods, so that they can, in a sense, be permanent there. The issue before was that if you had an NIS, so there's some neighborhoods that are not as affluent as other neighborhoods. And so if you keep an NIS there, and not have any other neighborhoods that are more affluent, or if you have an affluent area and then you don't have some of the other neighborhoods, then they're, in reference to the skills, right, that they have, it may not be as powerful as somebody that has a neighborhood that's very affluent and one that is not. So I've been working with how to balance that, so that I can have the NISs there without having to move them again. So in reference to right now, so just to let you know, I've hired 15 NISs and only 4 of them remain.
Oh.
So it's a big issue with retaining because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And they all leave because they get higher salaries somewhere else.
Right.
So it's not, and that's also the reason why there's so many changes, is because somebody may come, they may stay 6 months or a year, and then they leave.
Yeah.
So now I have to find somebody new to handle that, and it could be a seasoned NIS, somebody that's been there before. Or right now, for example, in your ward, I am putting a new NIS to handle some of your neighborhoods. Actually, 2 NISs to handle some of your neighborhoods. So it's an issue with retaining neighborhood improvement specialists, which causes a lot of disruption.
And this, if you can't answer, that's fine. But the starting for NIS is,
It's around 44,000.
and you said that they often leave. When they leave, do you know, are they transferring to other departments in the city? Is it a different type
Leaving
of,
the city.
and leaving just working for us, period?
Correct.
Is there an appropriate starting salary that you think would be best for retention?
I definitely think that it needs to be more than 44. I think that probably needs to be looked at because the NISs do a lot, We do, one of the things that was the difference was paying them overtime before they only got comp time. So that certainly, I think that also has something to do with attending the NAMs, the Neighborhood Association meetings as well.
Right.
So it's another incentive, and it's recognizing them, and because it's so much that, they may not be able to respond within 24 hours because they may have 200 emails coming in at the same time,
Right.
right? And so even though overtime is allowed and they can be compensated now, it's still a lot of work on their shoulders. So I do believe that a higher salary would definitely keep them from leaving.
For sure. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Alderman,
Thank you, Madam Chair. How you doing, Director? Appreciate you being here and appreciate your staff. I will first start by saying I get the opportunity to work with some of your staff more than you, especially as they're out in the field. And the one that's sitting here, I see are everywhere at every community event. If President Green is doing some, you guys are there, just doing good work. So appreciate it. When it gets to your budget, you keep talking about this supervisor. So I just want to make sure if we were to advocate, I'm just looking at the right thing. So you ended the year with 28 employees?
Say that again. I ended the year.
The budget, so 2024
Okay.
occupied positions ended with 28. Am I looking at that right?
Oh, you know what? I do believe that what happened there was that I added an administrative assistant. I didn't have an administrative assistant before. So the year before, I added an administrative assistant, and then this past fiscal year, somehow the CSB supervisor dropped, but the administrative assistant stayed.
Yeah, because I was looking at that. I seen you didn't ask for the administrative assistant in 24, but added one. And then I'm looking at it right. The customer supervisor was requested, but didn't fill it. So I guess that like administrative assistant kind of was doing two duties, or I'm just trying to
So right now, so we wear many hats. So
say that again.
we wear many hats.
Okay.
So until this past Friday, we only had one NIS supervisor. I just promoted 2 NISs to be, so now we have 3 NIS supervisors. So that's such a win right now. Our administrative assistant right now is, she's also our secretary, and she's sharing the payroll specialist position with me. So both of us are doing payroll. So that's a lot just for one person. So so I'm also wearing the hat of CSB supervisor, payroll, secretary, director, NIS supervisor.
And the NIS supervisor in your chart, is that the customer service supervisor?
No, the neighborhood improvement specialist. So according to the Department of Personnel, a supervisor will be most effective handling no more than 8 employees. So because we have 24 NISs, we needed 3 NIS supervisors. So we have 3 NIS supervisors to supervise the neighborhood improvement specialist.
Yeah.
And then we need a CSB supervisor to, because we have, at this point, we have 7 customer service representatives, 1, and then 1 customer service representative 2. So that's 8 employees. So they also need a CSB supervisor.
So so I see the neighborhood improvement supervisor requested 3, got that. Where do I find that NIS supervisor title?
You're looking at,
If I'm on the right page, yes ma'am, I'm on 275.
so if you look at the neighborhood improvement supervisor, it says
It says 3 to 3.
3.
Uh-huh.
So those are just for, that's under the neighborhood stabilization team.
Okay.
And then when I requested the customer service supervisor, it's supposed to be for CSB.
Got it.
Budget is split in 2, CSB and NST.
But that's the one you asking for to be able to maybe not allow things to go through is the customer service supervisor, that one right there, correct?
we do need a customer service, a CSB supervisor, correct?
Okay. I'm just making sure I'm looking at if I wanted to help you out, or I just want to know what was the name of the fund? I mean, which was the position that you were asking for with the CSB? Because it don't say, CSB
Oh, it's
supervisor.
customer, it says, it's called customer service supervisor.
Okay, but that's the one that you keep referring to.
Correct.
Got you. Okay.
Thank you. I apologize, it is confusing.
No, you fine. I'm just trying to make sure I'm doing my part. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. I did bring some pictures in case you guys want to look at them. Yeah, so I added some pictures, and we also have like the NSD newsletter. It's like the last couple of pages. Our team does amazing work, and we're really grateful that we have the opportunity to work with the residents, and I think that's all. Thank you. There's one more slide. I'm sure you guys get the NSD newsletter. However, I am very proud of our team. So I don't know if you have any more questions for me.
I got one more. So it looks like outside of that one position, you kind of look like you're better than other departments that you asked for 40, but you got just that one cut, correct?
Wait, say that again?
I got a lot.
That's some.
No, it could be me. I only want to be loud when I want to. So compared to other departments, I love to pick on public safety. So like, they ask for 300 some officers and they never get them. You've asked for 40 positions and they at least gave you the 39, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you're not like in rough shape, but that supervisor would be helpful.
It would definitely be helpful. And the only reason is because I really want to move towards quality, right? And we want to make sure that the customer service representatives are following what they're, and doing what they're supposed to do. And also because it involves a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of, because you have to calculate like the abandon rate, you have to calculate like how many calls are coming in. And so it would be very useful. And however, they're doing a wonderful job, and all of them are just very grateful, especially in reference to the awards and incentives that we were graciously given, and also in reference to the uniforms. So we're getting shirts. We need it. I wish I could have brought, I wish I would have worn this shirt. It says NSD, and it's just, they love it, right? And it's just something else that we can be grateful for.
Okay, and with that, I think I really appreciate you being here this morning. I want to give a shout out to Kiana, who's my favorite, I shouldn't say my favorite, but certainly is one of the best NIS staff. She does an excellent job covering not only her district and her neighborhoods, but filling in and jumping in for others. And I really, really, really appreciate that. She's always going above and beyond. Of course, all your staff, we really do appreciate them, but Kiana's just always on my list for going above and beyond.
Just to let you know, so Kiana just became an NIS supervisor.
Yeah.
And then Christian Saller also became an NIS supervisor. So
We love him in Gravois Park.
Yeah. Christian does an excellent job too. I don't get to have him in my neighborhoods anymore, but I know I shouldn't say she's my favorite, but she's certainly done an excellent job. If you could follow up with some of those reports, it would be super helpful. It would be great to add some of those time to complete. We just want to make sure we're deploying any additional resources as to those departments that are in highest demand, and data points would be very, very helpful.
Yes, and if you, please, if there's any other reports that you need, we can always ask CityWorks IT people to create them, and they can be delivered to you automatically.
Great, that'd be great. Yeah, if we could have those on a monthly or quarterly basis, would be excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our Neighborhood Stabilization Division hearing, and we will take a 15-minute recess to wait for the scheduled personnel department to come before the committee. Thank you.
Yay.
Okay. Madam Clerk, we'll go ahead and call the Budget and Public Employees Committee hearing back to order. With that, we have our Personnel Department here before us, and it looks like we have the entire staff of the Personnel Department. I've never seen this before, but welcome, Personnel Department, to our committee hearing. Director, you're welcome to take the podium, and as you know, as we always do during our budget process, we ask our department heads to come before the committee, give a brief overview of your department, and then we'll go through your budget. And if you don't mind introducing any of your staff members that you plan to have present, or if you just want to recognize the, I don't know, 40 or 50 people you brought with you today.
Before we start with our,
If you don't mind, you'll have to go ahead and speak in the microphone for folks at home.
before we start with our formal presentation, I would like to introduce, for the purposes of the committee, the Department of Personnel Management Team, and then any other members from our department that have joined this meeting.
Okay, and if you don't mind, first go ahead and start with yourself.
Sure. Yes, I'm Sonia Gray, and I am the Director of Personnel for the City of St. Louis. And if we would just start here, and if you would please stand and say your name and your role.
You'll have to speak into the microphone because we do have people tuning in from.
Okay, sorry.
Mhm.
Okay.
You'll have to speak into the microphone, but you could take the microphone with you, but we do have people tuning in remotely.
Dr. Anthony Bird, Department of Personnel.
Okay.
Alonzo Williams, Manager of Classification and Compensation.
John Understall, Deputy Director of Personnel.
Brian Beckelman, another Deputy Director of Personnel.
Aaron Swearingen, Talent Acquisition Manager for the Department of Personnel.
Alex Mazzola, Assistant Manager, Talent Acquisition.
Sylvia Donaldson, Deputy Director of Personnel for Talent Management.
Brenda Haverly, Health and Welfare.
Monica Green, Manager, Employee Health and Welfare.
Dwayne Elliott, Manager of the Training Department for the City of St. Louis.
Sandra McKinney, Manager of ERS and FRP.
Stephanie Green, Executive Secretary for the Director of Personnel.
Bianca Lambert, Information Management Manager.
Okay. Thank you. And for the other members of the Department of Personnel, will you please stand? These are members throughout all of the other sections within the Department of Personnel, but it is not all encompassing of the entire department. Thank you all for coming today. With that being said, we'd like to start our formal presentation, which is video and slide presentation. Okay. Can't hear it.
SDO.
2017, I think. It's in the agenda, just FYI. 13.
Disconnect that.
Okay.
Dr. Anthony Byrd, Senior of the Department of Personnel.
I hate to, so we are 20 minutes in, and we have a noon meeting with the Director of Public Safety, and so maybe if we're having technical difficulties, we could just give orally the brief overview of your department, and then we can go through your department's budget. I want to make sure that, given the time constraints here, that we're able to go through your budget. Director, would you mind just giving an overview of your department?
The recommendation I'd like to make is that if they could
Director, could you speak into the microphone? We have members on the committee that are not here.
If they could just use the microphone and place it on the computer, and that should be sufficient, since the technical difficulties are causing us not to be able to do that. So if you could go back to the beginning of the presentation and then just place the mic there, then that, because that gives pretty much a good overview of the department, what we've been doing. Okay. With placing it on the mic, we'll also be able to see the slides.
Okay. Maybe we could just go through the slide presentation. Is the video something we could watch later? Is it just I mean, we know that your department.
There are numbers that are included in the presentation, embedded in the presentation that I think are relative.
Would you be able to orally describe them to us?
It doesn't seem like this is going to work yet. That'll be fine.
I just want to make sure that we have enough time to kind of go through your budget, and we have the Director of Public Safety coming in at noon.
Okay, can I have the mic, please, so I can just do an oral presentation?
Is there a regular presentation we can, like the PowerPoint, we can just flip through?
No, it's all on
the video?
Yes.
Okay.
So with that being said, I'm just going to get to the meat of the presentation.
Do you have, that looks like do you want us to take a look at that presentation?
No, I'm using this as my guide because I don't have any screens to be able to guide me, and this is the only copy that I have for myself.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just going to flip through and just go straight to the budget. And if we have time to go back through this, if they're able to work through it, then we'll take a look at that. Pretty much my budget from last year to this year has decreased significantly. The impact of the budget decrease is really impacting me only from a staffing standpoint with regards to positions that are needed to staff the talent acquisition department and the human resources business liaison section. My staffing pretty much has remained the same. I'm up by one position, but the request that I submitted included an additional 8. It is really critical for the talent acquisition section because based off of the number of requisitions that they receive, in which we have currently 374 requisitions that are active, and I only have 6 recruiters to fill these requisitions, and these requisitions have multiple positions that are included on them.
Okay, so Director, if we're looking at your budget here, your budget starts on page 13 and goes through 21. So, but it's a little bit confusing because we have your general fund budget is, let's see, 5.4 million. Then you've got the benefits administration, which is also under you, correct?
Yes.
And then that's a separate line item, which is 1.8 million. Then you've got the employee pension trust fund.
Yes.
Which is really just, that is not necessarily, that's a pass-through, isn't that right?
Yes, it is.
So,
That is not something that I actually done by the PRS
Right,
board.
which makes that just a little bit confusing. And the same is true of the pharmacy self-insurance. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yes.
these are items that we don't necessarily discussed today. Because,
That's correct.
okay, they're kind of pass-throughs, but the meat of it would be the general fund budget that comes on page 14, so that 5.4 million, and then the benefits administration, correct?
Yes.
Okay, which is that 1.8.
Yes.
Okay, so those are the two important pieces here for the members of the committee as we're kind of going through this. And then your personnel schedule, which is on pages 20 and 21, where you have 54.85 positions budgeted, which is roughly equal to, with 0.85 of a person. I don't know which one of you is the 8.85. Y'all look like whole humans to me, but over last year's budgeted positions. And it looks to me, Director, that you're getting a slight increase in both the general fund budget and that administration. Can you tell us where you say you get these, where the cuts are coming in?
Yes, the cuts are coming overall. If you take a look, if we just look at salaries, for example, in comparison to last year and what was submitted, we have a decrease of $574,000, which is 85%. We've got another 71% reduction with regards to overtime. This is going to be critical because wherever we do not have staff to fill vacancies, then current staff will have to work overtime to be able to accomplish that work. Our salaries for temporary employees, salaries for, per performance employees is down 79%. It decreased by $15,000. And then, of course, with those reductions, of course, there are going to be natural reductions in other areas related to that particular account. So if you look at it overall, we are budgeted, I think we had, and I also want to represent that the amount of money that you're saying that particular fund has increased is a result of.
Okay. Sorry, Director, we are dealing with your AV issue, and it looks like we do have the presentation online if you did want to go through it. I know that we're having trouble with your video, but it does look like we have the presentation if it's helpful.
Okay. Well, if you want to go back to the beginning of that, that's fine.
If that's helpful, I don't mean to divert us
Okay,
here. I certainly want to make sure that you have the ability to go through at least the information you wanted to present to the committee.
Sure. Okay, so if you want to stop there with the Department of Personnel.
It is in our drive for anybody, any of the members of the committee who are tuning in remotely. It is on the drive, yes, if you can't see it on your screen. But we should all see it. Okay, so Director, if you want to get us going here, so that is.
Okay. All right. Are you going to make the slide bigger or just going to go through it from that? I can't, it's hard for me to see from here.
There might be a
This slide here, pretty much, I thought it was important for the committee to understand what the functional areas of the Department of Personnel are and the type of work that we were actually doing. And so we service the Civil Service Commission. We handle all EEO complaints and grievances for the city of St. Louis. We do all of the recruiting for all civil service positions. We have a talent and organization development, which has responsibility for the training of employees within the city. We have our classification and compensation section. Also the onboarding and engagement piece for employees, information management, health and welfare, and pension systems, which is inclusive of the ERS and FRP. Currently, we have 4,818 employees on payroll. 4,350 are full-time, 466 are considered others, which encompasses limited term, seasonal, per performance, et cetera. From January 1 of 2023 to December 31st of 2023, the Department of Personnel hired 753 employees in the city of St. Louis. That includes 648 full-time and 105 others. Of the seven, we also, from January 1 of 2023 to December, the city of St. Louis separated 756 employees. So 696 of those are full-time and 60 are others. From January to now, the Department of Personnel has hired within the month of January 50 employees, February 74, March 49, in April 169, May 47. In April, the big jump was a result of hiring our limited term and seasonal employees for the summer. In comparison, in 2024, in January, we separated 58, in February 47, March 64, April 54, and May of 27. You'll note that in the month of May, for both separations as well as hires, you'll see that those numbers are somewhat lower, and that is a result of the transition to Taleo, in which I will talk to briefly in slides that are coming up. For talent acquisition, which is our department, which is our section that handles all of the hiring, from January 1 of December 31st, the number of applications received was 18,184 applications. As a result of that, the Department of Personnel established 166 eligible lists. This is a really important number to clarify because on an eligible list, you can have anywhere from six applicants that have been certified and sent to appointing authorities, and that number could have increased as a result of the number of vacancies that actually exist. The number of exams that have been opened and reopened during this period of time is 234. The number of candidates placed on eligible lists is 8,071. So the Department of Personnel has referred 8,000 applicants to appointing authorities throughout the city for hire. 9,308 candidates referred for vacant positions. And the reason that there's a disparity in that number is because oftentimes we will send additional candidates on a referral list that currently exists. From January up until January 1, 2024, up until May 31st of this year, the Department of Personnel has received applications for 7,133 applicants. So if you note, we are tracking ahead of where we were last year. We have established a total of 76 eligible lists. We have opened and reopened 115 exams, and the number of candidates to date that have been referred is 3,622, 3,932 candidates referred to date for vacant positions. So to provide you with a breakdown, in 2024, the applicants per month: January 2,145, February 1,601, March 1,736, April 1,197, and May 454. Okay. Moving on. The Department of Personnel has also been involved with providing testing for police and fire examinations. This has been led by Deputy Director Brian Beckelman. We have completed the examinations for police promotions, and we have forwarded those lists to the Chief of Police, in which several of those classifications have already been. The fire department, we are currently in the testing phase. We have 286 candidates for probationary fire private. We are in the process of sending an eligibility list of 65 to Chief Jinkerson at this point, and we are still in progress with testing for fire captain and for battalion fire chief. Talent and organizational development. From 2023 of April to now, 227 new employees have attended onboarding classes. Last year, the Department of Personnel went to a citywide orientation program or onboarding program. This was very, very important because oftentimes when employees would go directly to their departments, the Department of Personnel would not see them for several months. And often they would not have received the oath of office, which is required upon employment, as well as they would have missed out on key training. 105 new employees attended a half-day onboarding class, and that was in support of our seasonal hiring. 2024, January to now, 251 new employees have attended onboarding classes. Employee retirement system, currently we have 5,111 that are receiving benefit. During 2023, staff processed 320 retirement applications, which included 3 requests for disability retirement and 67 applications for deferred retirement option plan, which is our DROP. Retirees and beneficiaries as of June 1 of 2024. Excuse me, that should be as January of 2024, right, Sandra? Okay. January 28, February 21, March 14, April 21, and May 13. May, we have 13. We do not yet have June numbers because it needs board approval. The firefighters retirement plan, we have currently 160 that are active. Retirees and beneficiaries as of June 1, 2024, January 0, February 1, March 2, April 0, May 1. We're still waiting board approval for June. For the committee's knowledge, Health and Welfare, which pretty much manages all our city-wide health care plans, we currently have active Anthem Blue Cross, we have Delta Dental, and we have Dental Source. The police active plans are the Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield and Delta Dental. I think this is very important for the committee to know, and that is for classification and compensation. For the incentive programs, we process 532 actions. For personnel requisitions, which is the review of essential functions, we process 912. Advanced starting salaries for new employees, we process 204. Promotional advanced starting salaries, we process 99. Exceptional performance reviews and retention inequities, we process 201. Temporary assignment differentials, we process 32. For employee relations, for 2023, we had a total of 10 grievances and 28 EEOC claims that we processed.
That was for, sorry, when?
I'm sorry?
That was for, we're having a hard time, I'm having a hard time keeping up, so I've got.
I'm sorry.
I've got it open on my computer, but.
Right. If I need to slow down, please just let me know. I'm just sort of like accelerating through because of the lateness of our start and the Director of Public Safety coming at noon. But please stop me if there are any questions.
The presentation that we have online seems to end right there at the health and welfare slide, and then the rest of the slides are blank. It says it goes through 35, but.
Yes, I'm looking on the screen here in the classification and
Not
compensation.
downloading, okay.
Okay.
You're at classification, thank you, Director, I apologize, I didn't follow along.
Okay. The Department of Personnel has embarked on centralizing the family medical leave and paid medical leave for improvements with administration of the program. Currently, the City of St. Louis has 504 active FMLA paid FMLA cases that are open that the Department of Personnel is managing. Okay. We've also launched our social media platform. This started back in April of 2023. We have a presence on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you notice, we have a brand new logo for the Department of Personnel. All of this was generated and created by Errol Logan, who's a member of the Department of Personnel's team in talent acquisition. Just for your knowledge, if you want to go back and look at it, we do have a breakdown of our social media audience and what our followers are, and broken down by demographics with gender. We've also did a lot of outreach. The department is more visible than ever. We attended 25 public engagements in 2023, and as of May 21st of 2024, we've had 20 engagements. We also had a citywide job fair in October in which we had over 550 applicants that we actually took applications for. All departments within the City of St. Louis participated in this job fair. In addition to that, to boost applicant flow for our seasonal and limited term employees, we hosted a city job fair in connection with the Urban League and also with Wohl Recreation. Okay. As mentioned, the Department of Personnel has launched Taleo, which is a fully digital applicant tracking system that is going to streamline our hiring process. It has enhanced accessibility. It gives us an opportunity to be able to track and measure our performance. It is very intuitive, it's user-friendly, and it provides information real time. So at any particular time, an appointing authority can go in and see exactly where their requisition is in the process, and they can also access their candidate flow off of this system as well. We are also in the process of implementing a partnership with HireRight. HireRight will provide background checks and employment verifications for all new hires for the City of St. Louis. The Department of Personnel for nearly 20 years has not conducted background screenings for employment history, criminal records, and educational records for new hires other than those positions in public safety and DOT-regulated positions or those that require additional screening for the purposes of access to people in the community. Partnering with HireRight will ensure streamlined processes for quicker turnaround times and adherence to legal and regulatory requirements. It will improve the candidate experience with user-friendly interface with applicants. We also are in the process of conducting, in partnership with Evergreen Consulting, LLC, a compensation study and classification study for the City of St. Louis. The compensation study was conducted initially in 2018. A classification study has not been conducted since 1998 to 2000. Currently, the City of St. Louis has 620 position classifications. Evergreen will conduct both a compensation and classification study citywide. And we go into the budget in which we were discussing before I went back to the beginning of the presentation.
Thank you, Director. Okay, so the last bit of information there that you were presenting, the classification study,
Yes,
one
ma'am.
that you're doing right now,
Yes, ma'am.
is it when is that getting completed?
We hope it will be, the classification and compensation study will be completed by December of.
Okay. Okay. End of year. When I'm looking at your budget, just to kind of go through, well, I guess maybe what we'll do, we could take questions from the committee on the function, and then you want to go through the budget separately. We don't have too many members of the committee present, so I'll just forge ahead here. The class.
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you, Alderman.
Sorry.
I have a few, but we can do the budget first, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alderwoman Velasquez. So the classification and compensation study that we're doing right now, that is presumably to take a look at what we're paying people in various city departments to understand how to retain and attract talent. And that's a study we've conducted with outside talent, is that right?
That is correct.
Where is that in the budget?
It has already been paid for. It's in the budget. We encumbered funds from this year.
Okay.
And in FY25, there's another $200,000 in the budget, in that line item that will cover the total cost for the compensation study.
Okay, so that is included in
Yes.
this budget, and we've got that accounted for. Okay, that's great to hear, because I think one of the issues that this committee has been really, really honed in on is making sure that we're paying people in such a way to allow the personnel department to be able to attract talent, and of course, to be able to keep that talent once we attract them to the city of St. Louis. So that's excellent. I'm having a hard time understanding your personnel schedule, because so many of the positions have been reclassified this year. So understanding a flow is very difficult, what the changes are from year to year, because so many of these positions have been switched around. Was the classification study done on your department earlier?
No, there was no need to, well, in the classification study going forward, yes, they will look at the Department of Personnel the same as they've looked at others, because there are changes that I believe needs to be recommended just within our structure. But when you say that positions within the Department of Personnel have been reclassified, there have not been positions that have been reclassified. Our structure has been very consistent. We have HR specialists and we have senior HR specialists. Prior to my appointment, however, there were an HR specialist 1, 2, 3, and 4. Prior to my appointment, those were collapsed from 4 into 2. And so that's where you may see some titles that are there that no longer exist, or there are positions that are not there, because that was actually done prior to my appointment in order to collapse 4 layers of HR specialist positions.
Okay, with all due respect, Director, we do look at these schedules. We've been looking at them all day long for 3 weeks. And I'm looking at the fiscal year 24 occupied positions versus is projected for this year. And there are quite a few differences, more so than any other department I've seen, to be honest with you. I mean, which is why I was just having a hard time understanding the difference between fiscal year 24 and 25, you know, as far as the HRIS is eliminated, the human resources manager, there's a shuffling. It's just curious to me, because we're doing a compensation study, but it looks, and a classification, but it looks like the department's already been sort of classified around.
Somewhat. The vacancy that is there for an HRIS, that position has not been filled. However, because of the transition to UKG Oracle and HCM, we did create a section that is information management now. And so those positions were taken to the Civil Service Commission, and the HRIS positions were created.
Okay.
Yes.
One of the things that, you know, I've mentioned we're focusing on is hiring across departments and making sure that we are allocating resources to the departments that need to be filled. The positions need to be filled more than, you know, in a priority sense. Your office has been helpful in providing a couple of reports to us as far as the vacancies by department, but it's been really frustrating to go through this budget process and not have an updated hired, you know, schedule as far as the vacancies by department. So it's really disabled us from being able to do our budgetary and personnel committee work. And I know we've pointed to the Oracle as kind of the holdup there, but forgive me, I mean, it's just really difficult to understand how we don't have a handle or just a basic set of reporting on the vacancies by department as a general rule of thumb in the personnel department. You know, I understand you're switching to Oracle, but does the department have a list of vacancies?
The Department of Personnel has the same list of vacancies that all operating departments have. We all operate off of the table of organization, which is created by the budget director's office. So at any given point in time, any operating department should, for your purposes, be able to generate a table of organization which provides the number of positions that they have that's authorized in the budget, as well as those that are vacant. So that data is readily available. The Department of Personnel has provided that upon request. We did not provide it this month because of the transition to Taleo. We have not been able to generate that report because of the changes in the system, because a part of the data for the Department of Personnel has to come out of our system, because that's what houses all of our requisitions that we have actually received. So in transition from Sigma over into Taleo for the month of May, there has been somewhat disarray with being able to get that data combined. But going forward, especially with Taleo, we should not have any issues providing that report on a monthly basis.
Okay. We have been requesting it since maybe March, so it has been a little bit frustrating on our end. I understand the sort of transition, but I would be hopeful that the personnel department, regardless of a transition, would have a handle of how many vacancies per department, you know, regardless of the committee's request for that data. The hope would be that information just exists within the department on any given moment.
So I think there needs to be a bit of clarity.
Requesting something special for the committee, that it would just be information that the department has a handle of?
I would like to provide a bit of clarity with regards to Department of Personnel and tracking vacancies.
Okay.
We don't track vacancies. What we do, our work is based off of the requisitions that we actually receive from the appointing authority. And that's what generates our ability to go forth and recruit in higher positions. So the vacancy count exactly resides with the appointing authority or with the operating department, because that is not something that the Department of Personnel tracks on a consistent and regular basis. We track the requisitions that we receive and the positions that we must recruit for. If an appointing authority does not submit a requisition, then the Department of Personnel takes no action whatsoever to fill a vacancy.
Okay. Are we doing any exit interviews and understanding at any given time how many employees we have and how many we're losing, so we can better understand how to retain that talent?
So yes, we do, and I presented in my presentation the number of employees that we lost over in 2023, as well as from January up until now. Okay. Currently, the city does not have a formal exit interview process. Appointing authorities or operating departments, they do their exit interviews independent of the Department of Personnel, and that information is not transferred or translated over to the Department of Personnel in any way. However, Department of Personnel, we do now have the capability of generating factual retention numbers to be able to see what departments are losing employees, in what classifications, et cetera. So we do have that capability right now. And we're in the process of launching an employee engagement section of the Department of Personnel. And what their responsibility will be is to put in retention strategies to begin to understand why people are leaving. And our thought, Alderwoman Spencer, is to capture that employee before they actually leave. Once they're gone, it's hard to bring them back. But if we can identify those issues before they leave, then that will help us.
Certainly, I think that's an excellent move in the right direction. So, Director, you mentioned that your budget, you said on the forefront that your budget has been cut. Can you help us understand what it is your budget or your department needs that is not accounted for in the budget as presented to the Board of Aldermen?
Yes, what is not included in the budget for us that I believe we need in order to be able to accomplish the work, as I had started to explain, is primarily around staffing levels. Because in order for us, staffing levels and technology. Because in order for us to carry out our work, we need to do that. For example, in the talent acquisition section, we have currently 374 active requisitions. I have 6 recruiters in that area. Industry standard says that a recruiter, give or take 10 or so, on average should only work 30 requisitions in order to timely be able to fill them. One of my talent acquisition specialists, he currently has 137 requisitions. And so therefore, we have to go through and we have to prioritize, and we work very close with the administration in understanding what the critical positions are. And once we know what the critical positions are, then that means that other positions are not going to get the time and attention that it needs in order to be able to be filled more expeditiously.
Okay.
So staffing within the talent acquisitions department for additional recruiters is my number one ask and need at this particular time. Technology is very important with our learning and talent and organizational development section, because in order to maintain a robust workforce, we have to make sure that our employees are trained. And right now we're dealing with very archaic systems, and we do not have the technology that is needed really to penetrate the city with learning and development initiatives, because everything is still manual or they have to come in. We are doing more, come into the Department of Personnel. We are doing more virtual trainings, but with the learning management system, employees will be able to log in, do training themselves without necessarily having to go into a formal setting.
Okay. Okay. I'll turn it over to the committee now for questions. Madam Clerk, did Alderwoman Boyd log on?
Yes, she's on.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'll go in order of seniority. Alderwoman Boyd.
I have no questions. Thank you, Personnel Director, for coming to the meeting.
Thank you, Alderwoman Boyd.
Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions at this time.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Gray. You've done a tremendous amount of work in updating our systems. Just a few kind of high-level questions. One, when you talk about the classification, just so we understand, what the work the consultant's doing, does that take into account renaming and updating job descriptions as well? Is that part of the thing?
Yes, and I'm going to ask Deputy Director John Understall to come up and explain a little bit more about that process.
Thank you. Yeah, so to that question, we'll be doing both the classification and the compensation portions. So we'll be looking at how we describe positions, making sure that their current classification fits what they are doing, and updating kind of the job duties from when it was last done 20 plus years.
Because it would seem to me, and just from a lay person, that it would even be harder to recruit people to the job descriptions may not actually describe what they do, or they might seem not as modern. So that's good to hear. Director Gray, just one more question. Can your office provide us a list of, I know that there are lots of different unions that represent different city employees. Can your office provide us with a list of which, when it comes to collective bargaining, which organizations represent which employees and how many there are?
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay, that'd be great. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Saunier.
Hi, Director Gray.
Good afternoon, Alderwoman.
Nice to see you. I do have some questions, but first, same thing. Thank you for all the work you've done. I feel like a lot of times we've talked about that, just the difficulties of departments who are trying to, come into today's world and bring technology, and at the same time deal with the staffing shortages, and at the same time deal with budgeting challenges. So I just want to acknowledge that I know that you and all of your staff are, balancing those struggles, and I can see a proactive effort to do the best that you can.
Yes.
My first question was, okay, so you said that you have 6 recruiters, and I just want to make sure I have my numbers right, because just for, like you said, there are months where you get that, hundreds and thousands of applications. So those 6 recruiters, what is their workload like? Can you just go into detail about that? And is that the, I guess that's my question. What is the workload like for the 6 recruiters, and is that enough for you to be able to operate, for us to be able to operate and hire at the level that we need?
Right. No, it is not. But I think for you to get real-time information concerning what they're really faced with on a day-to-day basis, I'd like to ask Aaron Swearingen from Talent Acquisition to come up and share with the committee what his team is involved in doing on a regular basis, so that you can really understand.
And I don't know, before you answer that, this may be for you as well, but can you give me the average timeline that it takes right now for an applicant from start to finish?
I have to answer that is on a position by position basis.
Okay. So you don't have, I know we've some of the things and improvements we may have been to kind of adjust the timeline. That would just be something you would have to follow up with us on.
Can you repeat the question, Alderwoman?
Yeah, just is there any general idea of what's the timeline between the time that a person submits their application and the time that they are, moved throughout the hiring process?
Ideally, we would like to review an application once it's submitted within 3 to 5 business days. After that, we've been trying to whittle down the amount of time that we actually leave open positions open for application in order to create more efficiency. We've worked with the administration on different ideas that basically time to hire is a huge impediment. So the longer it takes us, people file applications, they sit around 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they've already found other employment opportunity. So our goal is to cut down on that. The hindrance that we have on that is the amount of time it takes by volume with 6 staff members who are responsible to anywhere between 5 to 7 departments individually. They take applications, they screen them. They have to be evaluated, contacted, and then certified to the departments in rank order, which takes time.
So the recruiters are assigned by departments?
That is correct.
And so, like, for example, refuse. I guess I'm just trying to get an idea of, like, what is the workload? How many applicants is each recruiter responsible for managing at once? I know you might not have a flat number, but is it fair to say that they're probably always managing at least 100? Or, just I'm trying to get an idea of, in order for us to understand, do we have the amount of recruiters that we need to move the city at the pace that we need to fill the positions? I'm trying to understand their workload a bit.
Right, and that's constantly a state of evolution depending on the time of year. Seasonal employees, obviously, we need them to start in April, so we try to start recruiting in January. We have a huge load of applications up until May or whatnot. Other positions, we garner very few applications relative, so we're constantly shifting assignments to keep up with it. But any of our analysts would, at any point, be screening around 3,000 applications a year.
Yeah, okay. I guess a better question to get to where I'm going, maybe, and this might be Director Gray, do you all have, if 6 is not enough, how many? Because I'm thinking 6 departments and I'm thinking of all, six recruiters and I'm thinking of all the departments that we have. Do you know, like, is 10 ideal, or do you know how many might be ideal for us to get on the type of timeline we'd like to be on?
I will defer to the director.
Thank you, Aaron. Sure. So based off of the flow of what we've seen in 2023, and we can anticipate, especially getting ready to go into a new fiscal year, that we're going to see an influx of requisitions coming in because everybody's budget has been approved, and so they'll be submitting new requisitions. If I use as a comparison the number of positions or requisitions that we have last year, I would need an additional 4 recruiters to be able to maintain and streamline and get people hired quickly. One of the things that I like to share with regards to what the talent acquisition specialists are involved in, they are involved in screening the applications when they come in. They're also having to rate and rank. They're also having to certify to an eligible list. They're also having to keep up with the eligible list and coordinate with the appointing authority. Now, one of the things that I think is very important is that once the Department of Personnel has submitted the eligibility list to the departments, then it is up to the departments to interview, make selections, and get those referrals turned back into the Department of Personnel. And so one of the things that we're going to be able to provide soon, because we are we are on LUSTAT this year, and one of the things that we're measuring is from the time an application hits to when an employee walks through the door, what is that measurement? How much time is that taking? We feel very good right now because we actually have data analytics that will be able to assist us with being able to measure. We weren't able to do that before in the past.
Okay.
And so then we can be held accountable to meeting certain standards that are expected.
Excellent. And I know you're saying recruiter and talent acquisition list. Do you know how I would find that specific position within your budget?
You can't. And that is one of the things that I'm going to look at or have Evergrande look at for the Department of Personnel. As Alderwoman Spencer mentioned, it appears that, there's been a lot of movement, et cetera, within the Department of Personnel. Everyone that works for the Department of Personnel is either an HR specialist or a senior HR specialist. It is not categorized by specialty. And I am of the belief that there needs to be some analysis of that with regards to the way that we're structured and the way that our positions are.
Thank you. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to the fact that we'll be able to use the data and use the new technology to get the data, done a proactive effort to get that, to get
Yes.
that information, identify that gap. So moving outside of recruiters, in general in your office, just knowing your role and knowing how much you're kind of involved in response in, I know we talked about the recruiters specifically, but do you feel as if you have all of the supportive staff that you need to carry out the functions of the Office of Personnel?
I spoke mainly to talent acquisition because that's where the visibility is, that's where the biggest need. But when I think about my employee relations department, for an example, right now they currently work with 2 senior HR specialists that have responsibility for investigating all grievances, EEO complaints for the city of St. Louis. And we are seeing an uptake in that area. So I would need an additional specialist in that area. And then as we begin to talk about employee engagement and retention, this is a new section. And so there's currently not staff to fill these positions in that area. And so that is something that, we have to look at as well. But talent acquisition right now is the priority.
Excellent. My next question, you kind of got at a little bit when you talked about the grievances and things like that. As Director of Personnel, I'm just curious about, so some of the things I've heard from city employees, not from my own experiences, but they've kind of talked about sometimes the uncomfortable position they're in if they have to go and file a complaint or, say that they've been mistreated. They've talked about sometimes, I think they are really talking about the structure of the department where, we don't necessarily have an HR. We don't, I guess the grievance process sometimes can take you through your supervisor, which might be the person that you have the issue with, which then can be, a little uncomfortable for a worker to call it out. And I guess technically, I don't know if your office is the one that's supposed to stand in, but in general, is that something that we should be looking at the Board of Aldermen? Just in my personal opinion, I think it's leftovers from the patronage system that we used to have, that some of these systems are not thought out, but for real accountability if you do have issue with the person who's over you. But any ideas or thoughts you might have to share in that space?
Yes. One of the other areas within Department of Personnel that we've created is a Human Resources Business Liaison, in which there will be HR members actually physically working in the operating departments that can help the appointing authorities with managing these day-to-day HR issues. When I speak to appointing authorities, for example, the Streets Department or Parks, Rec, and Forestry, their commissioners and their appointing authority, their director, is spending anywhere between 30 to 40% of their time managing HR issues. And that's taking them away from looking at and managing those things operationally where they need to be focused. And so a couple of appointing authorities have given up positions in their TO to fund HR manager positions in their departments to be able to help facilitate and manage a lot of these retention issues, these grievable issues, EEO complaints, et cetera. Now, the way that we're currently working, however, is that the regulation is very clear and the charter is very clear on personnel's role in managing these types of issues. And so the grievance process starts with the appointing authority. The EEO process, however, can come directly to the Department of Personnel. And I've actually gone out and we've trained, for example, the refuse drivers most recently. We've gone out in the afternoon and met with them and trained them on how to submit the right type of grievance or EEO complaint based off of how our processes currently are.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm glad you're working on that because I think that if it goes through the appointing authority, but the appointing authority is the one issue with, or, how it works, the appointing authority is besties with, because a lot of folks have worked here for a long time, so they've been able to build relationships. So if I'm just joining, I might not feel comfortable filing a complaint either directly against my appointing authority or a supervisor who I know has a relationship. So I definitely love your idea of, I think that's the purpose of human resources entities. You have someone independent that you can feel like it's a safe space for anyone, regardless of personal relationships, to go. My next question, and this will be my last one. One of the things that a lot of the departments have talked about is their struggles with, filling vacancies and not having a relationship with us not being competitive with our pay as far as we probably will never be competitive with the private sector, but even as far as other public sectors and specifically like neighboring municipalities come up over and over again. You know, of course, refuse, police department, the building division talks in depth about if you're an officer, you can go to another municipality, you can make another 10, 15, 20 grand. If you're an architect, you're supposed to come out of school making six figures, but our things don't do that. Are you taking an active look? And I know that it's sort of a negotiation process in different entities depending on which department, but are we having active conversations about really what we can do to become competitive with our salaries in, like, as far as at least with other neighboring municipalities?
So the classification and compensation study is going to do that for us. And so we will actually have they will be utilizing data from other municipalities, et cetera, for similar or same types of jobs with what they present back to us. So we're feeling really, really good about having good data. The other thing, though, that in the interim of all of this, with the exception of those positions that are driven by union contract, by CBA, appointing authorities have the authority to recommend or request through the Department of Personnel where they have candidates that they may not be able to hire them at the rate that we're currently offering to do something that is called an advanced starting salary, or looking at other types of things to be able to retain. The compensation ordinance is very clear in its language that it does provide opportunities for those types of isolated situations to be handled where we may have to do something a bit different than what the starting rate may be for a position.
Yes, ma'am. I think, in my personal opinion, I think all of our salaries need advanced payment salary. I think we're just very behind in that regard. So I'm glad they have that specific thing, but I meant systematically. Do you have a timeline for that compensation study?
Yes, it will be completed by the end of this year, December of 2024.
Okay, that is excellent. And this will be my last one. You talked about Talia, to Alderwoman Spencer's questions when we talked about the vacancy. You said that's kind of why you're unclear. But do you think that Talia will help you to, the new system, Talia, will help you to get what you need to be aware actively of vacancies and to be able to kind of evaluate that information or make it available as requested to stakeholders?
So vacancies will not come out of Taleo. Vacancies will come from the table of organization. We use the data out of Taleo to look and say, okay, has a requisition been submitted for this particular vacancy for this department? But we have at any given point in time, real-time data with the table of organization as it is updated, because it is updated through integration with HCM UKG. Am I right, Bianca? Okay, good. Yes. So real time, we can produce a table of organization at the request.
So you do feel confident that between Taleo and the compensation study that we'll be in a much better position to address some of our long stagnant sitting vacancy in the future?
I believe
or requisitions to you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I believe that as a result of the classification and compensation study, that we will have data that will tell us exactly where we fall in the market. And then it'll be up to the administration to determine how that data is used. That would not be determined out of the Department of Personnel.
Understood. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How you doing, Director?
Good afternoon, Alderman.
Good afternoon. So glad you're here. Before I ask any questions, I just want to thank you. I mean, I feel like this session, you've been in front of the Board of Aldermen so many times. Even though we're going through the budget, you've been in front of budget committee several times already. So, just it sounds like you're really turning that archaic office around, and just appreciate not just your work, but every hard man and woman that sits behind you, because you're only as strong as your team. And I know that they are also making it happen to get it done. So I just want to thank the whole department as a whole. And I look forward to getting my personnel T-shirt that y'all are branding so well. I don't want the polo. I want the actual T-shirt. It's too hot out here for the polo. Yeah, one of y'all got me. I'll take it as small. To get back to that study, I think that was an interesting conversation that was just had about the study and then Taleo, because just so I'm clear, even though you're doing a study, is that study the salary study consultant that is in the budget, right? Okay.
Yes.
So that's the one for you requested $350
Yes.
but you only got granted 200. Do that with that 100 shortfall, be able to conclude what you feel will be helpful to kind of see, because that study just going to say where we are to other cities. Not saying that we going to increase wages, but it's just going to give a comprehensive plan of like how St. Louis will rank in studies. But I see you didn't get that full 350, you only got the 200.
So this is what happened. We had $200,000 in this year's budget, and that has been encumbered to be able to use for next year. And so we don't need the entire 350 for next year. We only need the additional 200,000 because I think the consultant, was it 399, John? 355? Yeah, so we're good.
Okay, so you got leftover funds.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure we could support. I think that is, could be important. Ultimately, it's still going to be up to the administration if we want to be competitive with other cities. I probably was going during the Taleo conversation. Can you kind of give an update of where we are with Taleo and when is it up and running? Is it happening? And
Thank you so much. Yes, it is fully launched. We have our new career site up. I encourage you that if you haven't gone out to see the new career site, please do, because it looks completely different than it did before. Yes, appointing authorities are going in and they're entering in requisitions into Taleo. We are in the process now of making sure that the generation of eligibility lists actually works. And so there have been some nuances, some system kinks that we're finding that we're having to go back and reconfigure, et cetera. But overall, it seems to be working. Operating departments have received this extremely well. And so we're still very, very excited about what Taleo will do for the city.
Gotcha. And commend you, like I said, commend you and your staff, because I know that's something new that you done brought on. And sometimes we talk about doing stuff at the city, but it takes a while. But it sounds like somehow you and the team been able to try to figure out a way to expedite it, because that's, critical to making sure, as you came in budget, you've talked about how, a person applies for the city and maybe they don't hear nothing back to like 3, 4, 6 months. And if I'm looking for a job, I can't wait that long. So I can only imagine why so many people have given up and say we're gonna go somewhere else. So hopefully that expedited. But thank you to the personnel department and to you, director, but to all y'all for expediting that and getting that done quickly.
I appreciate that.
A few more just budget questions. So under training certification, not that one. Professional services.
Yes.
What does that entail for like your office? Because I see you asked for 190, but they only granted you 90.
Our professional service would include anything that I would need to do for the Department of Personnel with regards to contracts, consultants, services that we would need. So for example, where I mentioned about the learning management system, a part of that money in there was to be geared towards going out and doing an RFP to try to begin to identify a learning management system as an example. But that's where those types of things would fall.
Will that 100 of not getting that, I guess, hurt that process?
Yes.
Education and services. I see you asked for 237. I think anytime we can. Well, what is that entail for your office?
That's updating, upgrading, training materials. Going out and buying, training documents or anything along those lines. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask Dwayne Elliott to come up and speak to briefly what that would encompass with regards to education services and the things we'd like to do.
Thank you.
What's your first and last name? Just for
Dwayne Elliott.
I knew that, but for the record.
Thank you, Alderman. In regards to professional services, it is integral that not only the city and the training department is positioned to offer the best technology and information to the city employees across the board, no matter what area they're in. That requires for us to have the technology, the learning management system, the learning modules that are up to date in industry standard across the board that is typically found in learning management systems throughout industry. But we also need to be able to send our trainers to get other trainings to provide services for all of the different departments if it's OSHA training, if it's sexual harassment ethics specific to an industry, we should be able to provide that out of the training department, and that's what those funds would be used for, to make sure we have all of those things, plus to upgrade the technology that we use to get the information out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Without having that to something, will that I guess they all will impact, so that's why you asked for it. But
Yes.
okay, I'm gonna get to some of the positions. So in 24, you had about 38. I guess that's what probably ended the year with 38 employees. Is that about right?
59. We ended with,
Oh, okay. I'm looking at general. Let me. Okay.
we ended with
Okay, I'm looking at it.
54.1, and for next fiscal year, we have 54.9. So we're up by 1.
Okay. I think that's all I have. It looks like in that, but did you request to have about, is that 63.85?
Yes.
What is the point? I know is that like per?
That would have to be a question for the budget department. I'm not sure how they do that calculation to come up with a 0.1 or 0.3, 0.4.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam Director.
You're welcome.
Okay. Yeah, Director, I think in line with the Alderwoman from the 7th.
Yes, ma'am.
Sort of timeline for, between the requisition and the hire or interview. I know we've heard from several departments that is really important to them. And because we're getting asked those questions, it would be helpful to have that data from your department. One of the other issues I noticed in the budget, we've got your position funded at 0.85.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have your full position funded. Is that correct?
Partially between the general fund and also ERS FRP, because a portion of my role services that area as serving as the secretary, and those employees report directly to me.
Okay, ERS.
They're not going to be in there because they have a completely separate budget. They're managed outside of our process.
So that's sort of I see that. All right, that's a new thing. One of the other issues from the other departments we hear often.
Split between benefits. It's split between benefits and the general fund, and not ERS.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you for the clarification there. We wanted to make sure. It just seemed like an anomaly to have your salary not fully funded. How many directors, how many deputy directors do you have?
I have 3.
Okay. We hear from a lot of other departments as far as building transitions in their departments when we have retiring directors, et cetera, that, having that deputy, having a second deputy is really important. But most of our departments only have, if they even have one deputy director. It seems fairly unusual to have a department with just 50 some odd employees to have 3 deputies. Is that, it's just not the case in many of our other departments. I just quickly, we had the building division here. They have 200 and some odd employees, and they only have 1 deputy director. And I know that's very difficult because they have so many under their purview.
One of the things that they have that I don't have are commissioners that actually run the other sections.
Okay.
And so it is not uncommon. When I came to I added 1 deputy. The Department of Personnel historically had 2 deputy directors.
Okay.
It was Kathleen Tanner, and it was also Linda Thomas. So it was not an uncommon thing. Based off of the structure that I believe was necessary in order to move the department forward with the changes in the transition that needed to take place, I needed 3 deputy directors that were over very key sections of the Department of Personnel. Okay. And so to share those with you, for example, I have a deputy director of talent management, which has 3 of the very key components of the Department of Personnel. That is talent acquisition, training and development, and employee relations. The other deputy director has responsibility for information management. They also have responsibility for health and welfare and for classification and compensation. The other deputy director is leading and in the process of helping me formulate the HR business liaison. The difference with the other departments is that they are department specific. The Department of Personnel, we are citywide, which is completely different. So we're servicing over 5,000 employees, where departments are servicing what, maybe 500 to 600, depending on the scope or the size of their department. So that is the significant difference. This structure is not any different than the city of Atlanta. It's not any different than the city of Dallas or other cities that I researched that has the scope of responsibility in which the Department of Personnel has.
Okay. And I think, please understand funneling questions.
Yes, I understand.
From many of our city departments, many of our city employees who want to see their own departments follow those national standards in their departments in those equal cities. And so I think there was a level of frustration that the reorganization wasn't taking place. I want to make sure that reorganizations are taking place in our other departments equally in the same way. And so, we as the committee that oversees public employees, we get a lot of the complaints or questions from our city employees about those things. And so it's just helpful, please understand some of those questions are coming from the folks that the personnel department is serving, and they're coming through us sometimes.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that and understand where the questions are coming from.
And so we get a lot of those questions, and I have to answer them, and I don't have those answers because I'm not in your department, so I have to ask those questions.
No, and very, very valid. And I'm really glad that you asked in order to receive clarity. The other thing is that on a regular basis, the Department of Personnel Classification and Compensation section work directly with appointing authorities with adding positions that may not be traditional based off of their structure because their needs have changed. And so
I think
we work with them.
I do think there was a level of frustration from other departments that wanted to see reorganization in their departments and saw some reorganization in your department and felt a little bit of frustration. And so that's what I was voicing this morning, which I think has some level of reasonableness to it. So now that we've kind of been through that, I think it would be helpful to, it will be helpful for us to see that compensation set in December.
Yes.
We're really looking forward to it. We're glad you're undertaking it. We're glad to see the clarification that's been funded. Thank you for the question from the Alderman for the 14th to be able to kind of understand that that's been fully funded and we don't need to find any of that in the budget. And it looks like, largely speaking, your staffing is staying roughly the same as the previous year. As you know, with the cut in the earnings tax that we're expecting and some other things, if you have specific, really feel we need to fund outside of this budget, we just have a little bit of time left, so make sure that we have those priorities before us, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we thank your entire department for coming here before us today. I'll get back to work, fire us up, and we're grateful for an update on the staffing levels, if you get it as soon as possible, just so we can better work with those departments and understand where those vacancies are and where we need to be advocating for the priorities to be filled.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have any follow-up questions from the members of the committee?
I just got one question because I'm looking out in the audience and I see a lot of, ghosts. So is that Miss Stephanie used to work in the comptroller office? Is that true? That you got a good one there. But and then also I see is this young man working in his office? In your office? Oh wow. Young people working for the city, so I just love to see it. I gotta give him your flowers. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all your staff and again all the great work y'all do and being very clear because I think there is a level of difference of like personnel and other departments of clear of how there are those differences, but also again I only could just echo the work that you're doing to transform that office, which it ain't happening overnight, but to bring us up to speed so that we can actually start hiring folks because we need it in every department. So thank you.
Yeah, and we apologize for the IT issues.
Oh yeah, is the video up now?
No, I think we have Director Coyle here. Yeah, maybe next time we can send it in a little bit more advanced notice so we're prepared for it. I think, I don't want to throw our staff under the bus. They got it, they didn't get much time to kind of prepare for it. So next time we'll give a little bit more warning, okay? Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you so much. And we're going to jump right in to Director Coyle, I think. Did he just step outside?
Turn your mic. You said.
Oh, well, we never went to recess. Okay, excellent. We just took a little break. Now before us, we have the Director of Personnel to, let's see, Chief Coyle, the Public Safety Director. So, and we're just going to be at the Director's office. Is that right? Yes. Okay, thank you, Director. And I want to apologize for our tardiness here and getting going on your hearing. We had an extended hearing on the Personnel Department. So, Director, thank you for being here today and for being accommodating of our schedule.
Glad to be here. Before I move any further, I want to make sure I mention that to ask for corrections.
That's right, just to ask questions. We'll have her just for questions at the end, if, yeah, that was the plan. If you don't mind, Director, try to speak in the microphone. I think we have several members of the committee that are tuning in remotely this morning, and then, of course, members of the public that may want to tune in. Okay, and if you have many members of your staff that you want to identify, please go ahead. Yeah. I think is the light green on the side? It does turn off sometimes.
It's green now.
Okay, excellent.
Thank
You're
you.
very tall.
Okay. Madam Chairman and the rest of the Budget Committee, thank you for having us today.
Thank you for being here.
My name is Charles Coyle. I'm the Director of Public Safety. And today I have brought with me my Executive Assistant, Monty Chambers, standing behind me, or sitting behind me, my Fiscal Manager, Coletta Fielders. And I think Jasmine Brown is here as well. She's my PIO. So they're all here to kind of help out with the budget and to understand what goes on. So if it's okay, I'll get started.
Go ahead.
Have something else. Okay. Our department overview, the Department of Public Safety is probably one of the largest, if not the largest department in city government. We operate and work with 9 different departments: Metropolitan Police Department, Building Division, Division of Corrections, Excise Division, St. Louis Fire Department, City Emergency Management Agency, Division of Civilian Oversight, Office of Violence Prevention, and the Neighborhood Stabilization or Citizen Service Bureau. We do have some revenues that we collect on alarms. Last year we collected $627,421 from these alarms. We do issue dance hall licenses as well as break permits. Now, some of the improvements that we have made, I'm going to go through a couple of them with the division, with some of the departments. I'll start off with 911. And I'll start off with 911 because this was, when I came on board this time, or February of last year, this was in the news every day. We were short-staffed, and a number of departments were short-staffed. We did an aggressive hiring process to try to encourage people to come on board as a dispatcher. Dispatchers are first responders, just as EMTs, firefighters, and police officers are. So we were able to hire significant numbers. We had started off, I think, right around 54 vacancies. Today we have about 11, but we still have some turnover that will come from retirements and then some that may feel that the job's not for them. So we're constantly working to interview and bring new dispatchers on board. We've just begun issuing a new posting. To give you an example, we had 26 names on a list. Out of that 26 names, only 4 were going to able to be hired that we're looking at. Well, it's not a job that just anyone can do, especially as a police dispatcher, because of the information, the pedigree information that they have on people and have access to. So they do have some extensive background checks that they have to go through. Now, in saying that, we do the same with EMS dispatchers and fire dispatchers as well. Okay. We have made some advancements with receiving calls within 10 seconds. Now, everyone knows about July 1st with all the call volume and how it took a little while. People were on hold. We still have hang-ups. We have a national goal of trying to reach 90% of our calls within 10 seconds. Very difficult to do, but we've been working in that direction. We've come from 56% to in the 80s, 84, 86. Now, this is our new marketing. We know some numbers have gone down, and I explain that. When the call load is higher, then the numbers within that 10 seconds will be less. So when we have, let's say, a shooting or homicide where a lot of people may witness things, we get a large number of calls. So if we're getting 1,500 calls during a period, we know that we can't answer all of them, and we're not going to make that 10 seconds. But it's a goal that we're going to continue to work on to try to achieve. When we think about some of the successes we've had with some of the departments, I want to go back a little bit for last fiscal year. One was with excise, which is one of our departments. When I came on board, there was a backlog of cases or applications where people applying for a license to open up a establishment that served alcohol could not get their application through. Well, my main goal in coming in as the director was to try to ensure that the departments were working in a cooperative way. So we have used other departments to help when needed with certain departments, and excise is a good example of that. Because of the staffing shortage that we had at that time, we were able to bring people that were on injury leave or sick leave to help do some of the paperwork to get us caught up. So we were able to remove that backlog to get them caught up to a current status, to the point where one of the companies that does this for individuals, they were used to their hearings being set back so far, were not ready because it was happening in real time now. So we're caught up with excise. I know you guys are aware of the ordinances that have been put in place for the new establishments, and we're preparing for that. We have hired several liquor control officers, and I'm not sure if excise has come in yet or not with you, but we're kind of preparing so that we can work with the facilities or the businesses that are going to be serving food at 51% and making sure we can maintain that. So we've hired, we needed those liquor control officers to help do that. I want to talk about a little bit about what we've done in corrections. That's an area that's been in the news, and I know you have questions for Commissioner Abdullah, who's here. But, you know, we recognize that we had some serious issues in corrections before. It's been for decades, it's been that way. But we have tried to take steps in certain areas to try to improve on the things that are taking place. I'll let Commissioner Abdullah talk about some of the improvements in the facility, but we have looked in 3 areas where we had deaths that happened. There is compassion there. We hate to see that happen. We're very sorry for the families when it does take place. But we were seeing them in 3 different areas. We were seeing them in 1, medical. And we have made substantial changes to medical thanks to the support of the mayor, where we were able to bring in the health department to help oversee the medical services that are being guided. For decades, we have asked the commissioners to be involved with medical inside the jail, and they don't have medical experience. And so I think that's unfair for 1. So now we have a medical doctor that understands what medical people are saying, that can evaluate what they're doing with our detainees, if they're doing the correct intakes with them, if they're providing the best service. That was the one way to handle that with medical issues in the jail. Another was the suicide for people that had not been designated for suicide watch. So that was a big concern of ours, is we needed to find a way to where we could recognize detainees that may be contemplating suicide and try to help remove that. And the third, of course, was drug overdose. So how do we deal with the drug overdose? I think I mentioned to you guys, what may not have been this committee, but there are a number of avenues in corrections where drugs may be able to enter, and we're trying to mitigate that in all. We have metal detectors we're putting up. We have detectors to help determine what a drug is. Commissioner will talk a little bit about that as well. So to lessen the amount of contraband that comes into the facility. We have vendors, we have visitors, we have staff, we have attorneys. All of those presents avenues for contraband to come in. And so trying to be as diligent as possible to try to correct that. And these are all trying to correct are the deaths that have occurred in the detention facilities. And over the decades, they have been in the same 3 areas that I just mentioned to you. One of the other areas that we're working on is the PSAP, a Public Safety Answering Point. And what a PSAP is a facility that we will include, we will combine police dispatchers, EMS dispatchers, and fire dispatchers, as well as SEMA. We're in the stages now for the design stage to have this property built. ARPA funds are being spent on it. We did receive $10 million from the state to assist with this. And we're in the final stages of the design so that we can actually have a contractor out and to break ground on the PSAP. This is going to be, I think, a big plus for us, where we can have all of our dispatchers in one location and utilize their existing locations as backup dispatch areas. Another goal that we have for this fiscal year is to broaden our footprint and our platform in social media. And the reason I say that is that if I think back about some of the issues that we've had in public safety, I would have liked to seen us give more information to the public sooner, with accurate information and timely information. And one of the ways that we can do that is having someone that can help us with media to get that and get it out quickly. So it's one thing for me to speak at a town hall or a community meeting, but that is only for that group of people. When I think we have the advantage of social media where we can spread that message out as well, so people know exactly what we're trying to achieve. And, okay, we also manage a number of grants. The Justice Grant, which deals with problem properties. We have criminal analysts that we have hired, 2 of them. We deal with software with the CAD system for our police 911 dispatchers. That's underway currently. I think it's going to be on board February of next year. And the police department lab equipment we've purchased with grant funds. Night watch for the youth. And for corrections, metal detectors have been purchased with grant funds. And equipment for homicide detectives. You may be aware of the driver's ed grant that we just implemented. That will be in operation this summer for our youth to receive driver's ed training. And the other is one that we're dealing with for HVAC for the corrections facility, medical showers, as well as water valves. At times you'll hear about flooding in the jails, where we're trying to correct that, where we can isolate certain areas. But that requires us to do some maintenance or repair work for the valves. When I look at the budget overview, in general funds, we went from $1,823,000 to $1,143,000, and there's a reason for that. We're looking at getting another executive assistant. We can wait till the next fiscal year for that. We added the temp tag project, and I didn't mention it earlier, but that's happening this fiscal year. So we didn't need it for the following fiscal year. So the $350,000 that was in last year's budget is being spent this fiscal year on the temp tag operation. I think that RFP has gone out. Is it Peterson? Justin Peterson will operate the loan program. But that is underway as we speak. Okay. Then we have some rate changes for the criminal intelligence analysts, just with their pay rates changing. We do have a portion of the funds that have gone to Prop P in our budget. $1,927,000 proposed. We got $1,926,000. So as well as our grants. All right, so just for an overview, we kind of talked about the PSAP, the 911 call analysis, our staff engagement and retention with our full strength that we're trying to gain. I just hired a deputy director. We're missing 2 positions, one as a safety officer and as a program manager. Well, here's adjusting. The Health and Safety Revolving Loan Fund is, I was talking with Justine. You should find that on the operational approach slide. Okay, so on the back page, on the last slide, it talks about our staffing, where we are just about where we need to be. We still need a program manager. We have hired the deputy director, and we're looking for a safety officer as well to fill out our staffing requirements. And if you like, I will take any questions that you have now.
I would. Thank you. Thank you, Director. Okay, so I am going to first turn it over to the committee for questions, and we'll kind of go through your budget. As I mentioned in front, and I have a hard stop at 1, so I'm going to have to turn it over to Alderman Aldrich at that time, who is making his way back. But I'll start with Vice Chair Alderwoman Boyd.
No questions.
Okay. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Velasquez.
No questions.
Alderwoman Saulnier.
Hi, Director Coyle. Hi. I have a question. It wasn't in your presentation, but I remember at an earlier date, and I don't know if it was here or public safety, but we were talking about you were working on getting, I think you were in early conversations about getting childcare for some of the first responders under public safety, and I was just wondering if I could have an update or where you might be with that conversation.
Yes, thanks for asking that. We did apply for a grant through the state of Missouri. We're waiting to hear from that grant.
Okay.
We applied for a grant to build a daycare for 100 children. We'd like for this daycare, because it's so few.
You said 400 children?
100.
Okay.
To be for first responders. First responders, meaning firefighters, police officers, dispatchers, EMTs, paramedics. What we'd like to do is, I'd like to see this as a way to maintain and retain employees. I'd like to see it as a resource or service or benefit that will give someone a second thought before leaving the employment with the city of St. Louis, first responders. So we're still working on that. The intent is to put together a committee of first responders, first of all, to talk about what we want this daycare to look like once we have received word on the grant. And then to bring in some professionals from daycare to help us through the process.
Well, thank you so much for going for those funds. I think that's an excellent motto, and I think it makes a lot of sense to start there, and hopefully the rest of us can build it out. It was one of the top responses in the RAM settlement funds as well. Do you know when you, did the grant give you a date when you might hear back so I can know when to follow up?
I thought I was going to hear back 2 months ago, and I've been looking.
Oh, okay.
We're going to patiently wait to hear, and I thought I would hear before the state ended its year.
Session, yeah.
We're going to patiently wait.
Okay, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you, Director. Okay, so kind of looking through your, I mean, you have the director, or excuse me, the overall budget, as you were kind of pointing out here, your department total is less than your last year's adopted budget, is that right? We've got 1 point.
I think that's the request.
Okay, so
It's less than, and let me find that page on my slide where it talks about that a little bit.
I was looking
okay.
at the director's budget from the, let's see, under the general fund.
I know we requested $1,823,994.
So your office director, the director of public safety, is budgeted, excuse me, the proposed budget includes $1.14 million.
That's correct.
Your department request was 1.8, and last year's budget was 1.6. I'm bringing this up because it looks like your budget is about $500,000 less than last year's budget for your office, at least according to this budget document. Is that correct?
It looks like that's correct. I think we didn't have a contract compliance officer in the last one that we do now.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's part of that as well. Is there something I'm missing?
It's a little bit unusual because I'm looking, your personnel schedule has more employees than last year, but your overall budget has decreased significantly.
You're talking about the general fund?
I was looking at the overall budget line item, which you can see the 610.
So last year we did have the 10,350 that was added. We didn't request.
Okay, the 350.
I mentioned that.
Okay, I see. That was 350,000 of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I mentioned, that
The Tim Talbot program.
we at first we put it into the budget request because we didn't think we would get it done this fiscal year.
Okay.
But we've gotten it done this fiscal year with the Tim Tag loans
fund,
for
okay.
$350,000.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so that would be the significant decrease in the budget for that. The Tim Tag loan program includes loans for folks to pay their taxes. Is that right? What all does that entail? How many people do we anticipate being able to get current with that program?
I can't give you the exact number, but it is a loan program to actually lend the funds for people to pay their taxes.
Okay.
One of the goals is to reduce the number of temporary tags
Okay.
that we have. I have not seen any studies on exactly how many we have. We had to work off the funds that we had.
And is that going to be
$350,000 was the total.
okay? And is it just going to be is it going to be exclusive to St. Louis City residents, or?
I believe it is.
Okay. Is it, and that program was awarded, you said, to Justine Peterson?
Yes, we had an RFP announcement. We had 2 contracts. One contract was from an online service.
Okay.
Justine Peterson has been doing loans for some time, and they're well-known in the city. They were awarded the contract for this program.
Okay. And is it going to be paired up with a program that kind of, I mean, when people get pulled over, or is there any sort of program that kind of pulls people into that program?
Okay, I need to make sure I understand what you're asking.
Well, I mean, I think we all get a lot of complaints about the sort of unlicensed vehicles on the streets. And so I guess the question is, like, letting people know that this program exists, either, a ticket or or not necessarily a ticket, but a directive to apply for this, or is there some kind of mechanism that we're going to pair it with, kind of addressing sort of the unlicensed vehicles on the streets?
Yeah, there will be an announcement,
Okay.
but I agree with the statement you just made, because that is also a way to get it done when if our police officers are stopping people with
Okay.
tags, and if they're aware of this program, which we should be able to make them aware of it. So then those residents would know that they can apply for for the loans for those to pay their taxes, especially if their tags have expired.
Right. Yeah, I think it would be helpful, just, I think it would send a message to those folks that do the right thing and are compliant, that we take this seriously, and that we're actually going to try to get people moving in that right direction, if there's an effort to kind of combine those 2 pieces. Director, as I mentioned, I have a hard stop, so I have to leave. I'm going to hand over chairmanship to Alderman Aldrich. Apologize to my vice chair. I'm not sure if she's here, but given the presence of Alderman Aldrich, I'm going to hand it over to him. And
I'm here.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Alderwoman. I hope you don't mind if I pass it over to Alderman Aldrich, just because he's physically present. And all we have really left is a follow-up with our jail commissioner. We had asked her to come back and answer questions from the committee. I apologize, I won't be able to be here for that, but we're just about done with our committee hearing today. So, Alderman Aldrich, you have the floor.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sounds like you already kind of gave your presentation, so I'll just go and list a seniority of questions that people may have for you.
We did questions, Director Coyle, if you want to.
Did you know? Okay. Well, actually, I have questions for you because I was out, Director. So,
Alderman, can you lift that up a little bit? Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for being here, Director. So just so I always, try to look at the budget and see where we can help and where we could support different departments. It looks like you ended last year budget, was it just with 5 employees?
Yes, that's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, but we actually have more now.
Okay.
Our deputy director, who's in training currently. We have hired a public information officer that I did introduce, Mrs. Jamila Brown, who's in the audience with us as well. We have an administrative assistant that we've hired, Ms. Thomas, that is working with us currently as well. We have 2 vacant positions, one a safety officer and the other a project manager.
Gotcha. Okay. And you requested 14 and you got granted 12 for this year. And it sounds like you almost just about at that 12 with the new hires that you just hired on.
Yes.
So you probably, what, about like 2 away from the 12? I was trying to keep.
2 away from full staffing.
Okay.
The request that we had was for an additional executive assistant with some things that we wanted to do that we will do in the following year. So we may request that again in the next budget time, if we're ready for it. We're not ready for it now.
Okay. And then I kind of want to go back to the TIMTAP things, and maybe this isn't the best for you to answer. I know your office will be helping to get more information on that. Because I think the question that Alderwoman Spencer was asking with the TIMTAC. So how is a person going to know were to, for the loan, will it be they getting money to be able to pay to get the temp tag off and get their plates, or will it be like an extension to get additional temp tag? Just curious about that program.
Well, I believe it's to actually pay the taxes to get the plates with the loans, because they're paying these loans back.
Got it.
How that's going to work is really going to be left up to the vendor that does that, and how they want people to come in. I would hope that there is some advertisement from it. I do believe in the departments in public safety working together to achieve goals that and this is one of my big priorities. So as the chairman mentioned, if they're stopped and they have a temporary tag that's about to expire, it has expired, I'd like to see that police officer be able to direct them to Justin Peterson to get along if they don't have the funds to do it. So that message can go out as well.
Got it. And I guess that would be, as the rollout happened, that would, and it becomes, you would have conversations with the department to, or the chief to, okay. And since it's a loan, it would be something that, and I think these are ARPA funds, it would be something that those individuals will have to pay back to the city?
They will have to pay those loans back. I can't tell you if it comes directly to the city or to Justin Peterson. I just can't tell you where those funds go. But it's city funds, and I'm assuming it's going to be paid back to the city.
Okay.
But that's an assumption on my part.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you speaking to the best of what you know into Rosa. I'm just curious of if it's not paid back, because if they already can't get their tags because it's expensive, thank God for the loan.
Right.
But that only sometimes means just pushing the ball further down the hill. So if they end up getting this loan from the city, you know, are we going to be putting them in a more detriment situation, which after they can't pay the loan back, what would be the consequences for that? Of course, we want everybody to get their plates, but they can't get it. That's why they're applying for the loan. So I'm not in your wheelhouse kind of because you're public safety, but just curious of how that's going to roll out. So, right, that's all I had. It sounds like everyone already took questions from you, Director. Thanks for being here. Next, we are going to have our jail commissioner come back up in front of us.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. All right. Looks like you got a presentation for us, so whenever you're ready, you can proceed on.
I was coming back to give you guys an update, let you know they asked me to describe the facility. I described it as a city within a city. As we go into the presentation on page 2, you see our capacity, what we currently have, and what our goals are, and what we try to meet is ensure safety and security, and as well as for the inmate staff as well as the public. We do a variety of things. Like I say, we're a city within a city, so we try to provide some programming, ensure we meet nutritional goals, and provide health care, and meet with community partners to kind of meet and exceed goals that they may have to try to bring some programming into the facility.
Director, make sure you speak into the mic.
Okay. As we go on to page 3, you'll see our progress updates. We talk about GD, some of the opioid addiction training we're doing, trying to get the community college into the facility, as well as dealing with some people in the community to try to get some barber programs, or at least start with allowing the detainees to get an outside barber to come in and cut hair for them, for the males.
One second, Director. Is this in our drive, Madam Clerk? Is this in our drive? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, for the board bills. It's the Department of Corrections.
Okay. Go ahead. I just want to make sure I can see it. Thank you.
So I won't go down word for word, but I will say that over the last year, we've got some grant funding that we matched to do some upgrades that Director Coyle brought up about our HVAC system, our plumbing system. Of course, we just concluded our multi-million-dollar renovation of the facility. We're currently hiring. We have a $3,500 incentive For new correctional staff, our wages have increased from 34 to 46 as a starting CO wage. We got a new healthcare provider. I spoke about it on the last time here, and we're collaborating with DOH to do a variety of things, and they're providing training to our staff as well as help oversight, provide oversight to our new healthcare vendor. Our total budget, as we go to the following page, is right at 29 million. Recruiting efforts are ongoing, trying to get improving in every aspect of the facility. As we keep going, we're just trying to improve what the jail provides to the community and be a good partner with all the entities within the city, as well as to the public. Do you guys have any questions for me?
All right, I'm just going to start in order of seniority. Vice Chair Pam Boyd. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Velasquez. Is there anybody online from the committee, Madam Chair?
No.
Okay. Alderwoman Sanye.
I just wanted to thank you for coming back. I think some of this information is really helpful. Do you know where you all are on most of my questions were around the new medical options with the director. Do you, I think I asked about last time if the psychiatrist or the medical professional had been hired, and I think you said that it was still going through the process.
She was actually hired, yes.
Oh, great. Okay. Does she have a start date?
I don't know the exact date because she works for the Department of Health, but she has been on board for, I think, 2 months.
All right. Well, that is good to know. I can update that. That was a question I had last time. My other questions were just around programming, but it wasn't, I think that you did answer it. It was just that maybe I was looking to see a bit more there, but my hope would be as we get established with the medical care and we get established with, I know you did this increase for the staffing and the salaries, that as we stabilize some of those functions, we can come back and take a look at what it might look like to expand some permanent programming.
Yeah, I think you guys last time talked about the programming and you wanted us to be more involved and maybe cater more and probably pay people to come inside. But in looking at things in retrospect and in over the last 10 years, you got a lot of nonprofit organizations that receive funding from the federal government to come in and do these things. And that's why we have a lot of volunteers that come in, they use that funding for that, and we're grateful for that. And it has been a good partnership. We appreciate those that come in and they give their perspective. It has helped the detainees. Even if we can save one, we've saved more than enough. I say more than enough, but not enough. But one is good. And we're improving. Once people see that the programming gave them a different mindset, it helps us to get more volunteers as far as detainees to come and get in those programs. So I see where you were going with it, but when you look at it, most of the nonprofits, especially in St. Louis, because we're a busy city, they come in and they have some good ideas, some good training that we've provided. And I think our most underrated section is the females. And so we did a Making It Work program. We have the Soul Fisher Ministries that came in and they're doing a program, and it has really helped tremendously. So with that, I don't want to take away from the nonprofits. We encourage them to come in, apply, go through our deputy commissioner to get in and put their volunteer paperwork in, and we will be glad to host them.
Yes, ma'am. I was really thinking if we are able to save on the programming end, and I don't know, I mean, I know it would be new for us, but exploring, I know one of the issues that happen often as far as staff and detainees is like the behavior and different issues that happen. And so using the programmings and having like more formal MOUs and formal programming to incentivize the detainees where like upon release, okay, you've completed an anger management class, or just, what it might look to explore the relationship of using, since we do save on the front end of the programs, what would it look like to put those funds, make them available to detainees probably upon Sometimes people do it for commissary, but whatever the case may be, to incentivize them to behave and work a little bit harder at their interpersonal relations with each other and with staff.
Yeah. I think, you know, in talking about that, we're trying to get the barber program, get a barber program, and we want those people to have a connection with the community where they, if they get released, they can transfer. And I hate to go down that rabbit hole, but that's kind of where we want to go, where people can take those things with them. I use those programs when they do complete them, and they write me a letter and tell me their goals. If they've completed those programs, I use it in a letter to the judge to kind of help them transition back into, whether if they're on bond or whatever, however they're trying to use it, we look at it in its totality and try to help the detainee.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Alderwoman Sonia. Also, thank you, Commissioner, for coming back. And know you're very busy, but coming back, you know, I think some people at the committee just wanted to get a little bit more in depth. And not only did you go more in depth, or not just coming back, but you also, you know, gave, I think, a presentation that can be a little bit more visual of like what we can do, either from this budget committee or the Board of Aldermen to try to support the jail to ensure that it is, you know, running to the best ability. Sometimes we may assume something, and with you being in there every day, you can really help guide us on that. So thanks for that. I do got some questions on budget. I'm not sure if maybe you had answered them last go round. So I'll just re-ask. Two things that I'm looking at on page 282. So when it comes to just things that you requested and like what you got a grant or got actually approved for. So the inmate food services, I see you had requested, you know, about 3 million, 3 million for food services. That's around the same amount you had last year, but it looked like it dropped from what they granted you with about 2.3 million. Could you explain? Does that 3 million pay for like the contract, or what does that do, and how does that decrease affect or disaffect, making up words, your office?
The 3.1 was requested based upon the capacity. We haven't yet, thanks that we have not met capacity. So we were trying to anticipate what may be. And looking at it, I think the totality of how many people we've had, using the historical data, I think that's how the budget officer looked at it. And so we look at it in that respect too. We just want to be prepared for the worst. And so we were basing that 3.1 million off of what could be the capacity, which is over 1,000. And they decreased it based on our historical data over the last 3 years, which is about right. So we didn't have any issues with it, and we were able to cater to religious diets. And it's really more, probably 98% of it is just 3 meals, and diabetic diets, religious diets, things like that. So majority of it is for the detainees, and other may be equipment funding, and that's probably less than 1% of it.
And since then, I know you talked about it for the last hearing, but maybe folks that couldn't listen on from what you said and your time of taking over the jails, you have tried to work to improve the food. I think last hearing you said it was like parcels of chicken, but now you've worked to try to ensure that people have a little bit more quality food. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Upon arriving, they were utilizing things called protein pellets. From what I'm being told, and it's standard in the field of corrections, I figured coming in, we needed to change that. The detainees were complaining because we all know what you feed your body is oftentimes influences your thinking. So I wanted to ensure that they get a better nutritional meal. So the contractor, they hired a nutritionist, or they had a nutritionist on board anyway. And so they got a 28-calorie diet, and they implemented it and made sure they didn't have any partially separated chicken and beef and things like that, to just kind of help overall. And it's improved significantly.
And then the other thing that I was looking at, and you know, maybe it's the same as an inmate. I think, you know, something that's really important, or maybe it's the same thing as the inmate food services. So the prisoner medical services looks like over several years have increased, which probably COVID or whatnot. But I see you asked for, well, it's not that much of a decrease that I look at it. I see you asked for 9 and you just got a little under that. Does that medical service fall also, how does that overlap with the emergency contract that you guys have?
It actually encompasses the medical contract.
Okay.
And
Is that where it's being paid from?
yes,
Okay.
and the emergency contractor goes until November. So we'll probably know around right before, maybe 30 to 60 days if we'll keep that. I mean, if we have a new contractor coming in, because it ends November 30th.
Gotcha. And then you roughly ended the year, maybe we talked about that, but you ended the year with about 146 employees. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
And I know you requested a nice amount, and the budget director, he spoke about it. He took a nice chunk out of your budget. Could you just talk about, and I know it's a struggle for every department, but you had mentioned a little bit of this, kind of the goal to try to either advertise or how to bring more people into the field. How can the board be a help? Like what can we as either the budget committee or board of aldermen help to with that process?
How it helps is to not publicize and be negative from the board. And I say that because when you guys speak about the jail negatively, when we recruit employees, they oftentimes state, the Board of Aldermen stated this about the jail: we don't want to work there. And so it makes for a environment that is lacking staffing already, and it further hinders us. We try to say, hey, we're still a facility that have to run 24/7. So what we need from you guys is good conversation in the media, us portraying us as not the villain, but a necessary component of the city to help improve in public safety. We've already included a $3,500 recruiting bonus for correctional staff. We just need applicants, and instead of them calling us saying, "Hey, we don't want to come in because of the scrutiny," some people have taken the assignment, and we appreciate that. We just need some to uplift the city and be better, improve by just being good stewards of the city's money and doing it the right way. And we're doing it over in corrections. We're trying in every aspect.
Got it. Heard it on our end, like you said, and now kind of on your end. So are you working with the personnel department to do that recruitment? Is it advertisement or is it just
time? Personnel is probably tired of me. I've been their ear a lot. They always ask what they can do. So we try to collaborate with them when they're going out to a university or what have you. Our Department of Public Safety, our staff, Director Cole's staff is, every time they go somewhere, they're promoting us too. So, and they're doing it on the social media platforms, which is assisting us as well.
Gotcha. Okay, I think that's it on my end. I don't know. I did see Alderwoman Boyd face pop up. Is she on the computer, Madam Clerk?
No, she's not on.
Okay. Well, Alderwoman Sonia, did you have any follow up? Okay. I think that's all we got from you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank everybody for coming. Do we have to approve? No approval of minutes, Madam Clerk?
Already done?
Already done. All righty. So only thing we have for the following week is we have committee tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. We also will be having committee discussions. So if we all come prepared, I think the goal is to have a discussion on what this committee wants to do moving forward. And then if I'm not mistaken, we don't have to worry about the Thursday meeting, but also with tomorrow outside of here in the mayor's apartment, we will also have community input. So if members just all come prepared, ready for what that committee discussion will be, I think that's all that I got. You know, I'm gonna try to spend as much time when you the chair just to, soak it out. Okay, I'm just kidding. Outside of that, any announcements from committee members? Seeing none, no members need to be excused. We always here. I'll just take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I guess since it's only two of us, I have to second it. Second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion adjourned.